It's easy to get disillusioned with ordinary life, but what if there's more to it than meets the eye?
Everyday, ordinary life is where extraordinary faith is built. It's where we actually get to walk with Jesus.
This podcast is all about looking at all of life, the highs, the lows, and plateaus, through the lens of a journey with Jesus.
Whoever you are, wherever you're at, God sees you and wants to walk with you.
Only when you choose to do life with Him does the ordinary become wonderful. Hey guys, welcome to Wonderfully Ordinary Podcast. I can't believe we're doing this.
This is crazy.
But we're just so excited. Like, I have wanted to start a podcast for a while now, but yeah, this first episode's really just going to give you a little glimpse into our theme and our heart. But my name is Samy.
My name is Stesha.
And we're going to be your host. And the name of this podcast is Wonderfully Ordinary, essentially because what the Lord taught me about 2 years ago now in the summer of 2023, He's been carrying on this theme in my life since then, and it kind of culminated in this idea of why don't we make a podcast about it? And so what happened in the summer of 2023 was I was at home for the summer. It was my last summer before my senior year of college, and I was working at Calvary, which is where I work now with Stesha, and I think that the Lord just convicted me of this idol that I have of always looking to what's the next big thing, you know? And we do that in our society, in our life so much. And so He was just showing me that ordinary, like mundane life is where you actually get to walk with Him. And sometimes we just blow past that and are keeping our eyes on what's exciting or, you know,
The next best big thing.
yes,
you know?
exactly. And sometimes it could be like something actually good. But then when you take any good thing and put it in the place of God, it becomes, you know, an idol. And so all that to say, as He was reminding me of this, I was like, wow, daily ordinary life is actually beautiful. I read this book that we'll probably reference a lot called The Liturgy of the Ordinary, and we'll talk about it more in another episode. But all that to say, a few months ago when I started full-time at Calvary, I went through another season of like, oh my gosh, I'm out of college. What do I do with my life? What can I do that's exciting? All these things. And God was like, girl, remember what I taught you last summer? Like, just walk with me. And I will bring wonderful things into your life, but it won't always look like something huge. It'll look like just showing up in a small daily moment. So yeah, Stesha, I want you to tell us more about your perspective, because I kind of came to you with this idea and like you're like on board, and then it went from one thing to another. So tell us more about that and your thoughts on this like theme.
So it's kind of crazy, I feel like, because I had no intentions of ever being in a podcast, to be honest. Like I'll tell you guys more in another episode in my like testimony about like I do come from a background of like social media and creating content, but definitely speaking was never my thing. And I think like while I was watching you like and like hearing you tell like about like your passion and what God taught you that summer, and at Calvary we also have our own podcast through the church, and so I had some experience like kind of helping on that, and I was like, Samy, like, you need to start a podcast because you just truly are gifted from the Lord. And like the way that you use your words, I'm just forever like in awe of it because I can't write to save my life. So I'm like, thank you. Just like a quick little intro about me. I am the social media content creator at Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale. And you are our content like she's also a content creator, but like she writes
the words,
just the word part of it. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely always coming to Samy like, Samy, can you write a caption for me, please? But yeah, like I just didn't ever think I'd be like helping on this, but it's like, you know, I do have skills in like social media. I do have skills in like video and like the technical and tech part of it. I was like, I'm willing to like help you do that part at first. And that led to us meeting up for coffee. Well, not coffee, boba.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And let me tell you,
Elite.
Me and her, we can yap. We were there for 5 hours.
Yeah, it was crazy. I did not expect that.
Honestly, it's like I looked down at the clock, like, oh, it's 5 p.m.
Yeah, the chair was like indented on my skin.
And so I don't know, it was like during that conversation, and actually, not gonna lie, like a little bit before that, I just like started, maybe it's the Holy Spirit, but I just started feeling like maybe I should like help Samy more in this podcast, but also I wasn't gonna like put myself in like, I want to be in your podcast with you. Because I really wanted it to be something that God was calling both of us to.
Yeah.
And not just like my intentions as well.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I was praying and like, okay, I know I want to do this. I could possibly do it on my own, like the speaking, hosting part, but I really want a partner in that because it's so much better when you're talking to someone, and I want someone who like has caught the same vision as I have and that the Lord is really putting. And so I honestly was like, Stesha should just be that person because we always have great conversation and she has all those other skills too. So like, why not just have her be my co-host?
Yeah. And I think like what really stuck out to me is when you described kind of what you wanted like the theme of the podcast to be about, the wonderfully ordinary and how extraordinary faith is built in these seemingly ordinary moments.
Yeah.
But I feel like that is literally my life, where so many times like I grew up a Christian in my whole life and I just always thought like, oh, my testimony is boring. Like I just grew up as a Christian, like there's nothing here. But when you start looking at all like the small moments is when you're like, whoa, like God did that. And like maybe it's only later you realize this, and sometimes it takes someone else to realize that for you and be like, hey, like that's a God thing right there. And so that to me was just like, I'm sure there's so many people out there that need to hear that and need to know that they're not alone. Like you don't have to have, I mean, it's amazing when you have like a crazy testimony where you were brought out like these depths of despair.
Yeah.
But even if you weren't, that does not mean that God isn't just as extraordinary in those moments.
Exactly.
So that's kind of like, I don't know, it just really like stuck out to me. And I even if one person hears this and is touched by it and hopefully is brought closer to God, I think that's a win. Like this is not about us. It's about God only and Jesus alone. So that's kind of it. So I'm just really excited about this.
Yes.
It's gonna be so much fun.
Me too. Yeah, I'm super pumped. And something else I remember from that 5-hour-long hangout conversation is that you reminded me that at the end of the day, like we're doing this to use our gifts for the Lord and to give him like this as just an offering to him to make much of God. And so at the end of the day, however long he has for this podcast thing to work out, it doesn't matter if it's like short-lived, long-lived, because it's going to be for him and we're just being obedient. But yeah, so you guys can expect an episode to drop every Thursday where we're either going to talk about a certain topic, just us two, or with a guest, and always try to look at it through the lens of some of these framing questions. So the topics are going to vary. Sometimes it might be more testimony driven, or it might be talking about something more specific. But essentially, we want to always ask a question like this: how does God use ordinary life to build our faith and transform us? Or how does life with Jesus turn ordinary life into something wonderful? Or even how can we train ourselves to see and invite God into our daily lives so that it will become something wonderful? So just that same idea of like, okay, instead of just trying to look for the big next best thing, why don't we actually change our perspective to look through a biblical lens and a lens of like awe and gratitude for right where God has placed us and exactly what he's trying to teach us and develop in us, like right where we are, right where we're planted.
Yeah.
Man,
I'm already getting so excited about this.
I know, I'm like pumped, so.
Yeah, but really we just want to invite Jesus through all of this, through his word to speak into things that people may experience in their everyday life. We also want to invite other trusted friends and mentors and hopefully maybe even people that you guys will recognize, some people in our community, just to come and speak about their experiences so that we can learn from their wisdom and appreciate the stories that God has written in their lives as well, because that's like the Bible is just filled with stories of other people's lives.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to kind of learn and hear from other people as well, not just us. Hopefully get some really cool people in.
Yeah.
One thing that I've always kind of thought about is the fact that my ordinary life is actually very like different to people and very unordinary. And I like explain things where people see what I post on social media and they're like, whoa, like you're always doing this and this. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I feel like my life is so boring, but apparently that's not how other people see it.
Yeah.
And even like Samuel, I'm like, you have the coolest life and I can't wait for you to share with people all the things you've gotten to do and in your, what is it, like minus
22
years of life.
22 years of life.
So crazy. Like, I could only like imagine to have done those things, but to you, you're like, well, that's just my life. Like,
yeah, that's
like
just what God kind of brought, you know?
Exactly. And it's crazy and it's cool. And to you, it's your ordinary life, but to someone else, it's not. So just because life sometimes seems unordinary or extraordinary, like from your point of view, from that person's point of view, it might not be, and it might just feel ordinary. And we're just gonna touch on different things. And saying that, we don't want to shy away from any highs or lows that you might experience in life. We actually want to talk about those things too, because they are a part of normal life.
Yeah, and I think too, it's important to, and we'll probably do an episode just on this because I feel like it's such a big like thing that we do, but comparison, like we'll look at each other's lives, not just on social media, but in other aspects of like someone you might know as an acquaintance or someone else you might know like as your best friend. Like we just always compare, I think.
I know.
And so the purpose, I think, behind this podcast is not only to be grateful and to look at what God does in everyday things in your life, but then also to fight against comparison and to then look at someone else's story and instead of being jealous or comparing, actually looking at it through the lens of Jesus and saying, whoa, like the Lord did this in your life. And I praise God for what I see him doing in your life. And it may be completely different than what he's doing in my life, but that's why he's so amazing, because he loves to create these like beautiful, unique stories and weave them together and apart and together and apart. And it just creates this beautiful masterpiece that one day we'll get to see like all of those things put together in heaven. And I feel like it'll be so beautiful to be like, whoa, the Lord did all of these different things in all these millions of people's lives. But the common strand is that it's a story of redemption and of meeting people right where they're at and of meeting people in their daily walks. And it's just going to be really cool, I think, to fight the comparison through this theme of, okay, how can I be grateful for what the Lord has given me? How can I be grateful for what the Lord's given you and our audience and our guest and all these things? And then how can we look for his hand in our lives, like weaving together this beautiful story that only he could be the author of?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And our hope and prayer is that we can practice looking at what might seem normal or mundane or even ordinary in our own lives and reframe our perspective to see what God sees and let him bring the wonder and the beauty in.
Yes,
because it's only through him that we can even like imagine to even see that. I feel like the enemy always puts these like dark glasses on us and it's like, see how boring, see how that person has this and that, but really like God is doing so much and we just have to look through it from a different lens and just look through it and just trust in him that his plan and his will is good for our lives. And I'm excited.
I mean, Romans 12, right? Like renew our minds, transform our minds. And so, yeah, that's just a little glimpse. This is just supposed to be the trailer, but we can keep going.
But hopefully as we have these conversations, as we bring these guests through, that you guys will get that new perspective and hopefully this will impact your lives as much as it has impacted our lives. And we're just really excited to join this journey together.
Yes. So thank you for joining us. If you are listening right now, we're just so excited to go on this journey. We are in the middle of it. Like we're still in our 20s and just figuring life out. So we're not coming at this from the angle of we have all it together. It's actually going to be cool because we just want to invite you guys on this journey of growth with us. And the beautiful thing about this, and this is kind of going to be our tagline for the podcast, is that everyday ordinary life is where extraordinary faith is built. And so that's what we want to leave you guys with. Our first full episode will be coming out next week, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into this idea using the Bible and other examples from scripture and just setting the stage for future episodes. So that's pretty much it.
That's it. I cannot wait to see you guys next week. Well, or you guys can listen to us next week, wherever you choose to. I guess before I say goodbye, you can listen to us on all audio streaming platforms as well as watch us on YouTube.
Yes.
You can follow us on Instagram as well. We'll have it in the show notes, but pretty much it's just wonderfullyordinary.pod.
Yep.
And then we'll have our own Instagram handle too, but whatever. The pod is more important than us. So we cannot wait. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
See you soon.